World War II is known for some of the worst atrocities committed against humanity. Many can agree that this was a dark time in our history, fueled by a ruthless ideology and a desire to promote the well-being of what was considered the superior or master Aryan race. The Aryan race included those with pure German blood, who possessed white skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes, modeled after Scandinavian people. Given the lengths the Nazis were willing to take to create a new Germany, it may seem unsurprising that they would have a program specialized for breeding human beings in accordance with their philosophy on eugenics. During the 12 years of the Third Reich, between 1933 and 1945, it's estimated that around 20,000 babies were bred by the Nazis in Germany as well as in Norway. A state-sponsored top-secret program known as Lebensborn was initiated by Heinrich Himmler. The word Lebensborn means fountain of life. It focused on increasing the birth rate of blonde, blue-eyed Aryan children through interbreeding. To do this, racially pure women were hand-selected to sleep with SS officers in the hope that they would become pregnant. So how did Lebensborn determine which women were fit for breeding? It was a very carefully orchestrated process. First, a woman was given a series of medical examinations and had to undergo a thorough investigation into her lineage. Obviously, it was imperative that she possess no Jewish blood in her veins. She also had to make a statutory declaration that there was no trace of hereditary disease or imbecility in her family. Additionally, she had to sign a document that renounced all her claims to any children that she produced in the Lebensborn program. This is because these children would be considered the property of the state. She had to show a certificate of Aryan ancestry dating as far back as her great-grandparents. Only after given the all-clear was the woman then allowed to select a breeding partner from a chosen group of SS officers. She was encouraged to pick someone with similar hair and eye color to her own. She and her choice would then get busy. You might now be wondering who would volunteer to participate in this program. Mostly, people who strongly believed in the importance of Nazi ideals. Hildegard Trutz was one such woman. She was a loyal supporter of the Nazis since Hitler came to power. She was a member of the Bund Deutscher Mädel, otherwise known as BDM, which was basically the female equivalent of the Hitler Youth. Trutz joined the BDM in 1933 and loved it. She was quoted by HistoryExtra.com as saying, "I was mad about Hitler and our new, better Germany." When she finished her schooling in 1936, she was only 18 and not sure what she wanted to do with her life. That's when a BDM leader approached her with a suggestion. He said, "If you don't know what to do, why not give the Führer a child?" What Germany needs more than anything is racially valuable stock. Because it was top secret, Trutz didn't know about the Lebensborn program, but she was intrigued by it, later admitting that it sounded wonderful to her. Despite knowing her parents would probably disapprove of the idea due to the stigma associated with pregnancy while not being married, Trutz signed up for the program right away. She lied to her folks while explaining that she was taking a residential course in National Socialism for a while. She probably felt flattered by the whole thing. After all, during her time with the BDM, she was singled out as a figurehead for her local organization, mainly due to her ideal Germanic appearance. She said, "I was pointed out as the perfect example of the Nordic woman. For besides my long legs and my long trunk and blonde hair and blue eyes, I had the broad hips and pelvis built for childbearing." Thus, she was willing to dedicate her life to the cause by producing children for her beloved Führer, the big man himself, Adolf Hitler. Trutz explained her experience with Lebensborn as being luxurious. She stayed in a castle in Bavaria located near the Tegernsee. There were rooms for recreation, sports, and games, as well as a library, music room, and cinema. According to Trutz, the food was also the best she'd ever tasted. She was one among 40 other girls there at the time, and they all lived under false names. The women didn't have to work, and their needs were catered to by servants. It was a relaxing lifestyle, like a high-quality vacation. Trutz and the other girls were introduced to the SS men who were to be their breeding partners. There was a getting-to-know-you session, and the group played games, watched movies, and enjoyed social gatherings in the castle together. The women were given a week to choose which man they wanted to get down and busy with. The names of the men were not given to them, though, because the Lebensborn program was built on anonymity. Once the choice was made, the women had to wait until the 10th day of their menstrual cycles, from the first day of their last period. This was roughly around the time that they would be ovulating and thus most fertile. The chosen SS officers would sleep with their women for 3 evenings within their fertile window. On other evenings, he'd sleep with more women who had chosen him as their breeding partner. In essence, the men were like studs, prized racehorses to be used for this specific purpose. Trutz was very excited about the sexual activity and the fact that she was doing this for the cause that she so heavily believed in. She said she had no shame or inhibitions of any kind. She was impressed with her breeding partner's good looks, though she had to admit she thought he was not really the brightest bulb. She even went as far as to say she thought he was kinda stupid. When Trutz fell pregnant, she was relocated into confinement in a maternity home for the next 9 months. When it came time to deliver her baby, she didn't use any aids for the pain. Pain alleviation for childbirth was frowned upon, as it was something used in the, quote, degenerate Western democracies, unquote. Trutz was only able to be with her baby son for 2 weeks while she weaned him. Then he was taken from her and she would never see him again. Trutz never discovered what happened to her son, and his fate is shrouded in mystery. Nevertheless, in the years that followed, Trutz was tempted to breed more children with the program, but she fell in love with an SS officer and got married. When she told her husband about her involvement with the Lebensborn program, he did not react the way she had hoped. He was not pleased with it, but at the same time, he couldn't exactly criticize her for it because she had been doing her duty to the Führer. Children produced from the Lebensborn program were to be brought up in special institutions where they would be indoctrinated in Nazi ideology. They were meant to lead a glorious future in the new Germany, but Hitler and the Nazis didn't anticipate losing the war. After World War II ended, the children were heavily ostracized due to the negative stigmatization associated with their connection to the Nazis. For the ones living in Norway, being associated with Germany became a crime. For the most part, the children were alone, unprotected, and hated by the state. With literally nowhere to go, many were institutionalized. In these institutions, they were often treated very badly, scorned, and abused. This is sad when you consider that these were just children who didn't choose their fate. Nevertheless, many would spend their lives trying to distance themselves from their past association with the Lebensborn and the Nazi Party. It was a legacy that caused many of them to feel ashamed. Some of the lucky children who'd been adopted into families were never told of where they come from, so they had no idea. A lot of Germans to this day still don't know if they were Lebensborn children, while others who do know could not obtain records that find their birth parents. Many of the records were destroyed since a lot of the fathers did not want to be found and revealed as SS men after the war. Still, even for those few who had fathers who did not try to hide their identities, the names of many parents had been stricken from record. Only a few were actually able to trace their birth parents' identities. One must wonder whether the breeding program was even worth the trouble. It's interesting that so much emphasis was directed toward creating more blonde-haired, blue-eyed children, especially when you consider that there's no scientific evidence indicating that blonde hair and blue eyes is somehow more racially valuable or has any advantage over other races. Still, you might be wondering why Lebensborn was such a tightly guarded secret during the time of the war. For the most part, the secrecy was due to the negative connotation with producing illegitimate children at the time, though Hitler had actually planned on being open about the program once the war had been won. He was, of course, overly optimistic about the outcome. So, what would have happened if the Lebensborn experiment was left to continue? Well, the use of artificial selection techniques would have certainly succeeded in terms of leading to the production of many similar-looking people. But more than likely, they probably wouldn't have been superior to anyone else. The Aryan race is nothing more than a construct, and there is no defining characteristic that separates blonde-haired, blue-eyed people genetically from others. In fact, all humans, regardless of race, are very close to being genetically identical. It all seemed kind of hypocritical when you also consider that Hitler did not embody any of the criteria of the ideal race. He was short, with dark hair and brown eyes. He definitely did not fit the description of the race that he promoted. On the topic of contradictions, many SS officers also felt that the Lebensborn program did not conform to the Nazi principles of protecting good old-fashioned family values. They didn't agree with producing children for the state. Thus, many of them refused to participate, though they were encouraged to have at least 4 children each and could be fined if they didn't. The average SS household possessed 1 child. Aside from the breeding program, many women who were part of the Lebensborn program also joined because they were already pregnant. As well as producing children, the program was intended to discourage the abortions of Germanic Nordic babies by providing a safe, comfortable environment for single mothers to have their pregnancies and give birth in a private setting while being sheltered from outside judgment and criticism by others. The mothers were also given prenatal care and had the option of releasing their children into Nazi custody if they were unable to keep them. In order to be accepted for care within the Lebensborn program, not only did you have to resemble the ideal German race, but you also had to be carrying the child of someone who fit the physical requirements. Women had to give names of the fathers and be approved upon admission. Are there people you know of who have been scarred by the Nazi breeding program? Do you believe the Lebensborn children were unfairly treated for their Nazi connection after the war? What do you think of the parents who participated in the program? Let us know in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other video, The Nazis' Secret Plan to Destroy British Economy. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.